Good morning, Remy.
Good morning, Brick.
I mean, I feel like as much as I really wanted to see you this morning, I really wanted to sleep in.
Yeah, I was like good. I don't know if it's because the rain woke me up, but I was awake like right before my alarm. So
Well, so I kind of got my ash chewed Tuesday morning, Remy, from Brandon. Uh, because I had my alarm set for 4:35-ish and I pressed snooze on it multiple times. And then after we were done and we were talking and he's like, by the way, if you set your alarm that early, you don't press snooze. You get your ass out of bed. You're either doing it or you're not. And I'm like, so this morning my alarm went off and I was like, I'm getting out of bed.
well, James woke up and he's like, "What? Why are you up so early?" I said, "We have the podcast this morning." And he's like, "It's only Tuesday, right?" And I was like, "Yes, we're just trying to be ahead of the game."
Part of the consistency, James, is something that we're working on.
But you could tell he was so confused. He's like, it's only Tuesday, right? Like I didn't miss a day somewhere.
You lose track of time when you're not physically punching a time clock, or I mean, you're leaving your property every day, right?
Yeah.
You leave your property every day. For me, I left my property last night to go out to eat, but before that, probably Thursday, I don't ever leave.
It's okay. When I took the kids back to school, you have to use a gate code to get in, and I could not remember. I could not remember the gate code after Christmas break.
Oh, I can imagine. I would probably be the same. But good morning, everybody. Welcome to Coffee with the Cowgirls. I'm Brett Kruger.
And I'm Remy Greer. And today we're going to talk about obstacles and opportunities.
The mindset of it. What do you see, right?
It's true. Like, it was like, remember there was that book that came out? It was like The Gift. I can't remember what it was called. It was like The Gift or The Promise or something like that. It was like really about manifestation before manifestation was big. And it was like, oh, if you really see this, then that's all you'll see, which is true, right? If you're looking for a red car, you'll only see red cars. But it's the same thing with opportunity. If you are looking for opportunities, you will see opportunities. But if you're looking for problems or obstacles, that's all that you'll see, unless one's like really bluntly put in front of you.
You know, a few weeks ago on here, we were chatting about something, Remy, and I'd made comment about when you start to make the mindset change or shift to what you see or what you believe, think, all of it, you see the world differently. And when you start to change your mindset on opportunity, obstacles, negative, positive, you see people differently. And like for me, I see it's like the people who are negative are like hitting me in the face. I feel like, I where it didn't used to always stand out. Now that I've been trying to work on it, it's like slaps me in the face when I see the negativity of somebody.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things too. It's like we all have bad days. We're all allowed to have like negative thoughts, but it can't be like the fabric of your life.
No.
And then I read something else the other day that you hold on to a negative thought 2.5 times longer than a positive thought. And that like really, really struck with me.
I mean, don't get me wrong, like, and we've talked about this so many times, but I mean, I try really hard to be positive versus negative and see opportunities versus obstacles, but I have to work on it every stinking day. I mean, it's not like rainbows and roses here. It's it's a challenge, it's a struggle, but the only thing I will say is like once you start doing it, it becomes easier to snap yourself back. Like if you start getting negative thoughts, it's easier to snap yourself back into positivity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it is. It's a habit that you have to practice. It's a mindset that you have to practice. And actually, James and I were talking about it yesterday. And I said, the difference is that I just don't think that I'm important, right? And like, I know that sounds like it sounds like
so weird to me.
It sounds so weird, right? But like, I think I reframed it for him yesterday because it's the same thing. I was like, I'm not asking for pity. I'm not asking for love. I was like, we're all just blips in time, right? Like, time is going forward at an ever increasing pace. It's gone backwards for forever too. So when you realize that you're just not that important in the giant scheme of things, a negative day isn't the end of everything, because again, it's just like a fraction of time. And because I'm not that important, if I fail or it goes wrong, it doesn't really matter in the long term, right? Like, you're like, I'm married to someone that seeks perfection all the time. And he
Oh
goes,
my gosh, we have to come back around to that. Not necessarily James, but just seeking perfection.
yeah, so like, you seek perfection. Well, I like perfection too, but it's like a goal for me. It's not the end of everything, right? Like, it doesn't define everything, because whether I'm perfect or whether I mess up, again, it's still just a fraction of time, right? And so I'm so comforted by not being super important to everything and everyone, because if it goes wrong, I kind of get to disappear into anonymity again, and that's okay. Like, and so it sounds so horrible, but like for me, like there's a lot of comfort in that. I'm just not that important. Like, I'm important to some people, I'm not important to everyone. I'm important to myself, but like in the grand scheme of things, I'm just not that important, and no one is that important, which
No.
again is very deflating for some people, but like for me, it's comforting. I If I mess up, then I just kind of have to wait for people to forget that I messed up and then move on.
Well, so I think that I developed this like when I was back in corporate. I mean, own it. I own if you're like, I majorly fuck this up. Good things usually happen when you own it. I mean, the ash chewing is like a little less probably. But if you lie about it and you have all kinds of excuses, or you want to argue with why it wasn't your fault, I mean, then that's when it becomes a problem. But this weekend we had our show, which God works in amazing ways because he flooded our place out for New Year's, so we were unable to have that show. And I just wanted to say thank you, baby Jesus, for flooding us out, because Remy, we were not ready. And it took,
And look how ready you were this weekend.
but we didn't know until this weekend how not ready that we actually were. And here's why we were not ready. And um, it is because a lot of us use Sword Arena. We don't use the RSNC software program. And it's a little bit more complex. It's not as user friendly as Sword Arena, in my opinion. And I shouldn't even say in my opinion. To be honest with you, I haven't even looked at the RSNC software. Uh,
I could
but
tell you from use, it was ahead of its time when it was developed, and um, it just hasn't been worked on enough to make it more user friendly. Like, it got written a long time ago, and it just has been patched, and it's just an older kind of software, and it's not as user friendly, which everyone will tell you. So just
they do it. Tanner does make it sound like they're working on new software, which is good, but it won't be ready for a while. So anyhow, uh, our good friend Tasha, who lives here with us, she does the announcing, and she knows, like, she's never ran an actual RCNC show, but she sat with Tanner and kind of knew the program. Well, at first, in my head, Tasha was just basically going to train me how to enter teams the night before the show, because that would be super painful for me to sit with somebody for 8 hours a day and do some lengthy training on software. I don't want to do that. I would rather clean 30 stalls. I don't want to do that. And so I was not prepared. And Tasha was. She had done her homework. But what we quickly realized is that it would have been way too much for her, like all of the weight of that show to be on her shoulders without somebody like Tanner there. Tanner's super knowledgeable, and he's done it for a long time in lots of them. So he knew, and it went smoothly because of that. But I was like, oh my God, thank God we didn't have that show on New Year's, because we were not ready. We would have went down in flames, and there wouldn't have been enough I'm sorry's for me to say, because yeah.
well,
So
look, it all, and that's so same thing. Like we've talked about before, right? When your sale barn closed, when we sold off our cows to drought, in
mhm,
the moment, it seems catastrophic, right? Where do I go from here? How
mhm.
do I fill this hole? And you know what? Everything's been. almost everything we've given up or we've shut down or we've moved on for or has moved on from us has led to other personal and professional successes. So again, for me, it's that blip of time, right? Like,
I think for me, in like big monumentous moments like those, I mean, because at that time of the sale barn, that is what truly defined us, Remy. That is what we were known for. That is who we literally were. And I'm sure that you could say the same for that, at your point in time. And it was just so hard to picture a life going forward with that not being your identity anymore, because it was a schedule of things that we had
well,
done for years.
it's almost like a divorce or a breakup or a death, right? And it's true, like it sucks and it hurts, but it's
We didn't know who we were after it.
yeah.
That's
But again,
that was the
that's
deal.
why it's almost like it really is. It's like you liken it more to a divorce than a death, right? Because it was part of your identity, and now you have to move
Yeah.
on with something completely separated out from your life.
And you're right. I mean, I once again, I mean, thank God that he put an end to that, basically, so we could discover a different version of ourselves and do different things. And it's been a hell of a lot of fun. And I'm sure it's going to change again someday. But when you're young, you don't understand all the changes. But now they're a little easier to swallow.
Well, let's say we were talking about our boys, right? It's like you when you're younger, people tell you, right, it goes fast and none of this will matter. If it doesn't matter now, it's not going to matter in 5 years, whatever it is. And it's like you wish you could tell your children that. And you can tell them all you want, but they have to experience that, right? Like that this heartbreak isn't going to last for forever. And you will be able to look back on whatever it was, right? Relationships, businesses, friendships with fondness at some point, even though it hurts really bad right now. But you can't tell people that because it's experience where you learn, oh, it really isn't that bad in the long run, or it was bad, but I gained this out of it. And yeah, I mean, it's it's like even us right now, right? It's raining, so you feel like you can't do anything because we were supposed to have the
I've been
driest.
there recently.
Yeah, we were supposed to have the driest winter on record after last year, and they have no idea what they're talking about. I mean, so they're saying that El Nino doesn't mean that it's wet and La Nina doesn't mean that it's dry. Well, my whole life, El Nino meant that it was wet and La Nina meant that it was dry. So I
It's
don't
just
know.
bad
It,
weather across the United States right now
it
for
is. And, we've gotten almost all of our annual rainfall.
in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
In a
So,
really short amount of time.
but
Yeah,
it's
I
awesome because our hills are all green. We have plenty of grass for the cows. So what's good for one business is not great for the other, but it'll, it'll be
at
okay.
least it's not snow. That's what we
You know
can
what? Again, it is not snow.
Yeah.
Yesterday we went out to we moved cows yesterday, and so I had like chaps and sweater on and my denim like my fleece lined denim jacket and a wild rag and gloves. And our one partner's like, kind of dressing for the cold, huh? And it gets windy where the cows are at. And I go, yeah, but like I don't like to be cold. I mean, I don't want to be hot either, but I don't want to be
I don't
cold.
like to be cold.
I was like, I can shed layers. So I was plenty toasty, and then we had to run around, not run, but like we had to go do some more stuff. So then I took off. I actually just took
Where?
off the glove. I just took off the gloves and a wild rag. But and it's the same thing. So again, obstacles are opportunities. So we had a lease that we had to do a lot of paperwork and bidding and figuring out environmental regulations for. And you can be faced with all of that, right? I could have been faced with all of that and just thrown my hands up and said it's not worth the work, right? There was a lot of hoops to jump. And then once we got awarded the lease, getting insurance for the lease was probably actually the biggest hoop to jump because I finally put my degree to work to write the bid to get the proposal to get the one lease. But again, if we were discouraged, then we wouldn't have the extra land that we just got that's gorgeous and really good for the cows, and those cows have been on it. But that was a big obstacle that a lot of people would have just turned and walked away from because it's just not worth the effort. And for me, I saw the long term goal. It is worth the effort, it's worth all of it. And there's a big opportunity for us to even have more growth. So let's get our foot in the door and do all the work to get there first.
Um, I want to go back to your conversation about the perfection thing because I was thinking about that. Um, I think that there at one point in my life I did strive for perfection, and it's unattainable. Like I don't think that. I think that you need somebody to tell you. I think you need to sit. You need somebody to sit you down and say, "Don't ever work for perfection. Like it's unattainable. You will be extremely frustrated. It's not realistic. Um, work to be consistent. Work to minimize the. This is what I do. Is I work to minimize the like the people being pissed off. I work to minimize the fires or whatever.
Yeah.
That is what I work for, to minimize the fires. And our really good friend Tash, she did the show this weekend, which she did a great job. But she said to me like the week before, she's like, I mean, I just want this to be perfect. And I was like, and if it's not, it's gonna be okay, okay? Like, and she's like, yeah, but I want this to be perfect for you guys. And I'm like, but I know that that's not realistic, Tasha. So it's no, we're not going to be mad if it's not perfect. I mean, we just want to minimize problems here. That's all we're working for.
Also,
We're
working with
actually,
technology, it will never be perfect because
yeah, no. When you work for perfection or you work for something to be perfect, you will be let down time and time again because it just does not work that way. Do you agree?
I agree. And so that's like, it goes back to when we were talking about goal setting too, right? So I use perfection as a guiding star, right? It's going to move, there's going to be clouds. It can guide you places, but it's not the end goal because, like let's go with the ship analogy. So a captain would use the guiding star, like, the North Star to get somewhere. We don't end up at the North Star. You end up underneath where you want it to be, right? So use it as if everything went perfectly well, this is what would happen. And then go on from there. But if you are always searching for perfection, even when you attain it, right? And this is I think something that you understand as you get older also, right? If I could just have this, then I would be happy. And even sometimes when you attain that, you there's a big letdown, right? Like
Oh, that's like my big, we could talk for hours on that because I,
because you reach the goal and then you're like, this is not at all what I thought it was going to be. Right. And I
so
did all the things and I jumped through all the hoops and I got here. Now what?
I don't necessarily, I don't take on that. I want this and my life will be happier. But I see that so much, Remy. Like, and it's usually materialistic things. Like, if I had this vehicle, I would be so much happier. If I had this house, I'd be so much happier. Do you know how many people that I know that have all of the things and they're all like beautiful things, like we would all maybe want to have, and they get it and they're not happy. And I can tell you guys, I live in a single wide freaking trailer house with four of us in here. Two of them are boys. And it is not fancy. It's like from 1970s. I've got flooring that's half finished. I really don't care. Everything works though. The heat works, the air works. We're all happy. I mean, it does not like I think I've had this talk so many times with people over the last couple of weeks, and I'm like, where you live and the things that you drive, it does not make you happier. I don't know why people think that.
Well, and I think I see it from a mental standpoint though too. Like I do, right? Like if I was just this successful, right, I could relax. Well, no, because if
Fuck.
especially if you're someone that's driven for success, right? And I am, you are, a lot of people are. It's not, there's some people that like I admire because they are happy no matter what they have. And it's not just, again, it's not just material, right? Like I only want this out of life, so I'm only going to work this hard to get there. And for
And
me,
so success for you, Remy, though, is it tied to money or just
no, it's
the
like,
definition of success?
it's even like dumb stuff, right? Like if I want to win this race, it will make me happy, right? Because I'm hyper competitive. I
I'm
know
the
that about
same.
myself, right?
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, I understand that even if I win all these things, or if I have all these cows, or if I have all these horses, or my business is successful, if I am not happy to begin with, those cannot fill the hole, or they can only fill it temporarily, right? You cannot be happy by things or success or praise, because if it's not coming from the inside, and yes, you do have to have people that sit you down and you're like, hey, enough is enough, right? You're good enough as you are, but you still have to internalize that, like, fuck it, I'm good enough as I am. Because if you don't, then you are forever miserable, forever chasing something,
Yeah.
and then you like swallow people up into that misery. And
Well, I know people who they take on that mindset and they've literally, because they're just not happy, they're not satisfied. I don't know what it is. They've literally, their family does not like them anymore, Remy. Could you imagine? Could you imagine having everything that you ever dreamed of, but your kids who are little or still in high school will not talk to you?
yeah.
Um, your husband doesn't want to be with you. Your immediate family wants away from you. Could you imagine that? Would it be worth it?
No, and I've grown up around people like that, like from the outside, right? They had the big house, they had all the fancy cars. They could want for nothing except for a meaningful relationship with their.
Yeah, and that is what it is. Like they have everything that they want, but uh, the love of the people around them are in their lives. I don't know.
Yeah, and like, at some point, like you're going to be surrounded by things that don't matter and no one to be there. And
Hmm.
it's again, that's that obstacle and opportunity, right? Some people are always looking for opportunities, especially financial opportunities, that they miss other opportunities that are there. So, it's like we were talking about this yesterday. So, um, from the outside, we live a life that most people envy, and you guys do too, right? You get to work with your family, you get to work with animals.
And
You
most
don't,
days I don't see it. I'm like, I don't know why you want
but
to.
like, so think about it from the outside, right? We don't report to people. You might have owners that you report to, but they're not really your boss. You're offering a service, they partake in it, right? You get to hang out with your family. You don't have real hours, for better or worse. Like, yes, you have hours, but not really. Like, if you wanted to feed and clean from 4 into 11 and be done, you could feed from 4 into 11 and be done, or you could do 5 to 12 or whatever it is, right? You get to set your own hours, you get to do what you want to do, and you get to work with like pretty ponies and cows. From the outside, that is fantastic. From the inside, you're always like, oh my God, hay is expensive, rocks are expensive, I can't find any help. Well, and like there's a lot of sacrifices that go with the pretty picture. And now for me, again, like I don't get swallowed by all the sacrifices. That's just not who I am as a person, right? Those are the cost of doing business to me. Cost of doing a business I very much enjoy. And I understand all the great parts, even in the middle of the shit.
I
I'm thankful for it.
um Me too. I've taken a lot of shit this last week because I bitched about The Rock a lot last week. So everybody now makes fun of me for it. But I do understand it too. And um just like you, I enjoy working hard. Uh I like that. I would never I would never want to step into something that was already done. I like seeing our mark of the building or whatever, you know? Um And I'm not gonna lie, like, I came into the house on Saturday morning or Friday afternoon. People had already started pulling in here quite early. And I came in the house to get something and I was standing in my kitchen looking out the window. And I did start crying because that was like, that's a cool moment for me, Remy. I mean, I don't know if a lot of people know this or not, but when we bought this property, it was literally this single wide trailer house and the little casita thing in just bare desert ground. There was nothing here. And we did that in a really short amount of time. And it felt really good to see people pulling in. It's like,
Yeah,
we built it. We did it.
yeah, it's a field of dreams. You build it, they will come, right? And I think that's the hard part about success. And I think that's why you see obstacles popping up for some people where there used to be opportunities, because you get spoiled with success, right? We'll never see a bad day in our life. Look at all the stuff we've built, look at everything we've done. And then
I don't
if
know.
you're
I don't believe that because
okay, so
oh,
but I'll give yourself 5 years of being successful at what you do, and then you will start to see it again,
I don't
right?
look
But
at it like that though. I
so
really don't. We've had this conversation. Like
yeah,
you're like,
so
let's talk about this because we both view differently.
yeah, so for me, right, like I'm not that way, but I do see it because I'm always just like, oh, okay, like so again, this is a mindset, right? And it's not just, and I've seen it with a lot of people, right? They'll have a very successful business. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's a steel business. It doesn't matter if it's a horse training business. It doesn't matter if it's a restaurant. Things go really well for a while for everyone. And then something that when you were younger wouldn't have seemed like that big of a deal because you weren't successful. You weren't comfortable, right? It was just one more obstacle. Now it seems like a bigger obstacle, even if it's one of the smaller obstacles you faced because you got complacent in your success. Now for me, I just take it on the chin and I'm like, well, we've weathered much worse, right? Like we've weathered droughts, we've weathered rain, we've weathered uh, everything really, good markets, bad markets, recessions. I will tell you, as far as a production business, you don't want a recession and you don't want a great economy. You want it right in the middle, because when the economy is great, everyone works and no one comes to shows. But so for me, I just take it as like, this is just, again, part of the life cycle. This is what we're doing, and it's not great. But I've seen plenty of guys, especially that run big businesses, where what you will see is a small bump in the road from the outside to them seems really big because they have, it's almost like you haven't had to deal with that obstacle in a long time, so you forget how easy it is to overcome.
Oh no,
And
I'm well aware of all of the freaking obstacles. Uh, but I don't view success like that. Like I'm not like, oh, we are so successful. I don't think either one of us have ever, no,
yeah, no.
like literally wake up and it's keep working. Like I'm so glad Blake told me that because that is like, I just think it's like so fucking cool. And that is really who we are. Like, keep working. What are we working towards? I'm not really sure, but we both like to work and you too, Remy. And this is so I feel like we have a lot of different irons in the fire, and a lot of people don't know about the lot of different irons that we have. I don't really talk about them. I don't even really know. We just have a lot of different irons in the fire. Somebody asked me this weekend, is this show stressful? Not really. It really wasn't. But part of the reason is we have a very good team and they take that stress off of you. I'm like, there's like other parts of my life that are way stressful. Getting that rock bill, that was stressful for me. Like that's the kind of shit that gets stressful for me. Um, but anyhow, I feel like Remy, like, okay, so for many years, you and James have not done the same thing, it's but it kind of with like the cattle and the shows and all of it, that's been pretty same. So I could see how you would feel like success, like, oh, I'm successful right today, but then 2 months later, the markets change or something happens with the shows and I don't feel successful. But in my head, things are about to change for you because you're adding another business that you've never done.
Well, and for me, it's
The
like, for
box
me,
beef business.
yeah. And so it's like, for me, I don't take it as not being successful, right? I'm like, oh, this is just another storm to weather. we had a client one time, and he did steel, right? And he bids out this whole thing, and they didn't read the contract, and it had to be American made steel. So he's got like 4 semis sitting there with not American made steel to do the deal. And this is a giant company. And he was just like, okay. And it ended up working out. They ended up getting another job that they could use that steel on, but it was the same thing, right? Like before, when he was not as quote unquote as successful, it wouldn't have been that big of a deal because he probably would have read the contract a little closer. But he was just like, how do we mess this up? And how did this happen? And you're like, well, it happens. And
But
for
it's
me,
that risk and reward,
it is. And
know?
like for me, I think too is it's like, okay, so your rock bill, right? It's the same thing with us for hay bills. I don't sit there and worry about it because we're just going to keep working to pay it off. And yes, it sucks. And yes, it's frustrating, but the bill
Well,
is
no,
going to
I
be.
was just pissed because they kept more coming, and
Oh, yeah. No, but okay. So that's what I'm saying. Like, hay is the same way, right? Hay prices keep getting higher and higher and higher. And
oh,
at
we need
what
it.
point, right? And at what point do you stop the bleeding? Okay, well, the only way to stop the bleeding is to shut your business down completely. Really, if you just want to, if you want to stop putting money out, shut
Yeah.
down completely. Now you're also not earning money if you shut down completely. But for me, again, it's just like, okay, well, why are we going to be pissed off about a bill that you knew was coming and that you knew you had to pay?
I
And
just
now
don't
you're
think
just,
I realized how much it was going to be. But
yeah.
then I was
And I'm not
also,
talking about you specifically, right? I'm talking about all of us,
yeah,
right? Like, you know the bill was coming. You knew you had to pay it. You knew the work was coming. You knew you had to do it, right? Because that's what I hate too is when you see people, and what's the quote? It's like opportunity often shows up in work clothes, right? It's the same thing. You knew you had to do work to get somewhere. So why are you mad about it? Like, for me, it's not worth being upset about. Not that I won't get pissed off and vent and do something. I just don't hold on to it for very long. And again, I don't have anxiety about the other stuff, which makes it seem like I don't care. It's not that I don't care. I knew the bill was coming. I knew the work had to be done. I knew all those things. So why am I going to make myself sick and upset for shit I still have to pay or I still have to do? Right?
right.
Like it still has to get done. So instead of getting mad about it, I'm just like, all right, let's go. I'm going to do it. And again, it seems like I don't care. It's not that I don't care. I don't want to sit there and bitch about it. I just want to go on with my life.
I want to bitch about it for a little bit.
I mean, I want to
And
bitch
move
about it. I'm
on.
not saying I never bitch about it, but like, I guess and maybe it is an anxiety thing. Like, I don't have anxiety. So I'm just like, that sucks.
Well, maybe it is, but, so Brandon's like, the reason that people usually work together is because they're opposites, and he is so different from me. He can, like, I was, the rocket thing is, and my dog is like having an attack in here. She must have ate some hoof this morning, and is it stuck in your throat now? But anyway, like, he can diffuse me when I am like, I opened the rock bill when I was doing emails in my house one morning, and I was like, oh my God, like, I knew that they were here frequently for 2 days straight, or maybe the week. I don't know. And I'm like, holy shit. And I called him. I'm like, can you please come in here? And he's like, yeah, I'll be right there. And he comes in the house. He's like, yeah, what's going on? I'm like, do you know how much a freaking rock is? And he's like, well, I'm sure it was a lot. There was like 15 loads, Brack. And I'm like, yeah, it's this much. And he's like, that sounds about right. And I'm like, don't you think that's a lot? And he's like, yeah, but it's necessary. It's needed. If we don't have it, then nobody can come. And I'm like, okay, you're right. And then we had a fight with pool noodles. We actually jousted it out, jousted out our anger.
It's just, I do. I think it's like the same thing, right? Like it's a necessary evil for us to have the rock. Okay. And versus you're like, holy shit. Like, did you see that bill? Yeah, it sounds about right. And it was, it's the same thing. Like we go, we have all of our accountant stuff is in QuickBooks. And so it's like you look over your life for the year and it's like, oh my, like, it's just this series of numbers and you look at it and you're like, oh my God, like it's a lot of money in and out. And like, what do I have to show for it? And for me, like, then I start listing off the things that we have to show for the money that's gone. Right. And James, like, I don't need that right now. And I'm like, okay, like I'm not trying to be hyper optimistic. I'm just telling you this is now what we have for that. I do, and I think it's very important to develop relationships where someone always sees the opportunity, because
Okay, so
and I think you have to lean on each other, because we're sometimes I don't see a way out. Like, I'll do whatever it takes to get out, but I don't see the way out. James will see the way out, and then other times he can't find the light right at the end of the tunnel, and I'm like, but X, Y, and Z, and he tends to be a little more angrier in being happy about finding the way out than I am, because I'm just like, oh, great, you found a way out. Where he's like, but let me tell you why I don't like those ways out. I was like, well,
so
at least.
opportunity though, so I think that where people get scared with opportunity is, think about it, Remy, like if you always saw a problem with the situation, would you have a lot of risk? There'd be no risk. If you always came up with the negatives or the problems of every single situation, you're pretty safe because you're just bitching. And it
Well,
doesn't matter if it's
and there's no hope in that, right? Like,
no.
there's no hope, and then there's no disappointment, because I think a lot of people shy away from opportunity out of fear of disappointment.
Yeah, or what somebody else would think.
Yeah.
And it, like, an opportunity could be something that costs you money. It could be something that costs you nothing. I mean, like, if we look at the podcast as an opportunity to spread a good message to other women in our industry, it really costs us nothing.
Yeah.
It just our time.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't cost us a dime. But we could have chose to look at it like, oh, nobody will listen. Are we going to do this and not make any money? Which we still currently are. So if you have any ideas of how to monetize this, we'd love to hear them. But you know what I mean? Like, if we would be doing a disservice, because then everybody would think that they're alone. They don't have these same thoughts or these same feelings. There's so many things that you can look at, like this, like that. You know what I mean?
No, and I think too, the other thing is, like, way leads on to way. Like, one opportunity usually leads to another, right? But you can't always be. Some people are naturally more cautious than others. Again, I don't think I'm that important. So if I fail or if it doesn't work out, like, okay, on to the next thing. I also don't really care what people think of me. So it's okay if
I
I'm
still
not.
like question your, like, I don't really feel like I'm that important. Like,
I see, but like,
you
people
know,
take that as a negative. I don't. I think it's awesome. I think not being super important. Like, again, it's like, how big is your scope of life, right? Like,
well,
how
I mean,
big
I
is your.
don't know. Like, so do you feel like you're not important to other people? I don't know, because I'm like, I
Okay,
don't
so
ever,
when I say
I
that,
don't, maybe I don't
I
think like
I
that,
think
or
I'm
I
important.
don't
I
think
think
I
I'm
am
important
important to other
to
people.
some
What?
people, right? But like, there's a whole world of people that don't even know who I am. So, like, in the grand scheme of things, right? Like, if you're looking at us from outer space, I'm not important. You're not important. Nobody's important. You can't even see people from outer space.
Right.
So you get to hide in not being the most important thing in the entire world. And it gives you freedom to mess up, right? To try again, to start over, to reinvent yourself all the time if you want to. Because, again, you know, the earth has been spinning for a really long time, and it will continue to spin after you die. And that sounds very negative, but it's not. It's just.
Yeah. I don't know, Remy. I can't grasp your deal there, because I do feel like you. I mean,
I think, no,
she's
I
into
think,
crystals and stuff. I'm not. I don't know. I'm like,
yeah.
you got
So,
your crystals out this morning. What's going on?
no, it's just, I just never think that anyone is that important, because even think about, like, some people that you were friends with in high school, right? That you thought that you would be friends with forever in that moment. Like, in that moment, right? You're like, you had the heart
I
necklaces, like
hated
the.
high school, so that's a terrible
Okay,
analogy
so
for me.
college, like, you had, but like, when you're little, you had the heart necklaces, like the Bee Fry and the Saint N necklaces, and they came
Yeah.
together. In that moment, you never thought that friendship would end, right? That was going to be your person for the rest of your life. In that moment, or a boyfriend, or whatever. In that moment, that's the most important thing in your life. And then you can look back because they weren't the most important thing in your life. In fact, you are the most important thing in your life.
No, I don't. The only thing I could think about when I was that age, even through my 20s, was getting the hell out of Iowa.
Okay,
And
so that was the most important. Okay, so
I
yeah,
was
that's it,
selfish. I
right?
thought about myself and like,
Okay, so that was the most important thing in your life, right? Getting out of Iowa. Well, now you're out of Iowa. It's no longer the most important thing.
no.
So what happens is we always think that something is going to be, and the reason I say that is, when you're younger, you think a relationship or something or a job. For some people, it's a job. Like this will make or break me. This will be the most important thing in my life. It's not. And when you look back in 10 years, you're like, oh God, that really wasn't that important. Because nothing except for your happiness and your family, and I say family because it doesn't have to be blood, right? Like your circle of people, that's the only thing that matters in the long run. Not money, not jobs, not what the world thinks of you, just your little insulated circle of people. Because again, there's, billions of people that don't know you exist. And so you're just like, I love thinking about that like, there could be another me, like even in Arizona or Nevada or China or Italy. It doesn't matter. There could be someone just like me. And that's great. Like, it doesn't scare me. Like, I think it's because nothing is that important in the long run except for you being happy or content
Right.
in what you have in your life.
Well, I think we're gonna have different views on this because I kind of get where you're coming from now, but I still am like, I do feel like, I mean, I don't know. So, like in the last 7 days, I'm like, maybe I should pause Coffee with the Cowgirls with Remy. I'm getting really busy and my head is like all over the place and I've got a lot of things that have to like just get done. Am I going to have the time and energy to put into this? And then I would get a message the next day, literally. And it was like, thank you so much for what you guys are doing. And it's so good to hear. And I'm like, damn it. Gonna have to get up on Tuesday mornings at 5 o'clock.
I know I get those messages too where it's like, thank you. Or someone was talking about
Point
on link.
is, you are important.
I
That
am important. I just mean like it's okay. So like, okay, I'll put this in another thing that completely divorces it from who we are as people, right? Like the mayor of my town is not important to the people of like four towns over, right? Like he's important to our town. I'm important to my group. I'm just not
she
like
just goes so in depth on everything. I feel like Remy, you're
it's
just
just it's
you
it's like but see the thing is I
got
think
this
so many
Iowa girl
people
confused, okay?
like I think so many people think they're hyper important and then they get crushed under the weight. I think what it is people for me, right? I've watched overachievers and myself. I am an overachiever, even if I say that I don't care. Like you get crushed under the weight of those expectations, right? Like I have to be perfect. I have to be successful. I have to do all the things and I can't falter and I can't do any of those things. For who? Like for who? Because you can still do all the things and people aren't going to like you. And the people that do like you, well, they're still going to like you. So maybe just take a breath and realize that in the whole world, there's comfort in not having to be everything to everyone all of the time.
The only thing right now that I can say that like I'm like stressed about, I hate it. It makes me crazy. I'm thinking about it all the time is we had that event this weekend and people parked out in my parking lot and they tied their horses to their trailer. And you know what they did?
You dug
They
on your
shit all over.
all over your rocks, all over your nice
All over
expensive.
my rocks in my desert. And I'm like, I haven't gotten out there yet, Remy, because I had a lot of shit. There's a lot of deadlines with the horse sale that happened yesterday morning and today. And thank God for Allie because she's helping me with that. But I was like, first, I wanted to do it on Sunday night. And Brandon told me I was freaking crazy and to sit down. And I'm like, but I don't like the way it feels, Brandon. It's making my skin crawl. I just
Yeah,
want this
it makes
shit
me feel
picked up.
itchy. I don't like it.
I know. I'm like, I just want this shit picked up. And then yesterday, I was in the house a lot. And then I go outside in the afternoon and I was like, oh, this shit is still there. I'm like, damn it, I need that picked up. It's making me nuts. I don't like that. That is
Yeah, so I will tell you a side note. When we were in Canada, because they have all indoor arenas up there. I mean, I think they have outdoor arenas, but we're always in indoor pens.
because it's
They
always
have
cold.
pitchforks everywhere and buckets. And if your horse goes to the bathroom, you have to pick it up immediately, or they get really upset with you. And I was just like,
I like their style.
I mean, I
And
do to a
everybody
point,
is
but
very
I got attacked a couple times, and I was like, I'm literally walking to get the pitchfork right now. Like, why are you yelling at me? I'm going to do the thing that you're asking me to do. So,
I'm
I
not
get it
complaining,
too though, because like
buddy.
I get like really weird about certain things. Like
That's
today
my
it's gonna
level of importance.
yeah, like well, it's gonna rain today, which means I'm gonna run horses out in the back, but I'm also gonna clean my tack rooms and I get them perfect. And then I don't want anyone to walk into them because it's like everything's where it's supposed to be. Please don't touch it.
Funny how or I'm guessing that you're the same way. Like, funny how that's what we strive for outside of our house. But in
But
my
yeah,
house,
my
like,
house is a shit show.
yeah,
So
let the shit fly in the house. I don't really care.
no, it's just like but again, like I think that's why it's easier for me to see opportunities, right? Because if it doesn't work, I'm not crippled by the expectation that it's going to work. I'm just like, oh, let's shoot our shot. If it comes together, awesome. And if it doesn't, something else will come about. Because again,
Well,
it's the whole keep working thing. I don't expect the universe or God or someone just to give me something because I'm sitting here hoping for it, right? I'm putting myself in situations that allow me to be successful, that show me more opportunities. And then hopefully I give other people opportunities.
well, I know. I love that saying, keep working. I mean, I think that there's a lot of validity to it. Last weekend, Remy texted me and she's like, I don't know what she texted me about. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm kind of crazy busy, and I'm like, but I did see that you got your show moved to an indoor arena. I'm like, that is awesome. I love it. Thinking outside the box. Keep working. I mean,
Mhm.
that it feels so good. Like, man, maybe it doesn't feel good for everybody because I've never wanted the new house. I like to work, and it's not about success or anything like. Well, I mean, it's definitely not about the money. I mean, I need money to pay for my rock bill, but it's not what drives me. And I don't even know what drives me anymore, but I just like to do it, and it's who we are. And
No, and I think again that comes back to our conversation that we've had before about success, right? I want my family to be happy. I want my husband to be happy. I want to be able to ride nice horses and check on nice cows, right? But I don't need a big house. And I don't like, there's a reason you don't see us driving the big trailer because I'm happy driving our stock trailers and not worrying about the payment on a big living quarters. Now, that doesn't mean that that's for everyone. That's just for me, right? I'd rather drive that trailer than be encumbered by debt on something else because it's not because those things aren't important to me.
well, so
But
I think it's super cool that you and James saw an opportunity in the box beef business for your area and your ranches, and you kind of have an idea of how you're going to go about it, which I think is so cool. Um, that and you're starting. You've
yeah,
never done this before, so you're on the very bottom. Everywhere you go from here with that box beef business, Remy, is going to be success. I mean, it's going to be success because
yeah,
you're
because you're starting from nothing, so it
you're
can't
starting on
get
the ground floor.
worse. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's that kind of stuff excites me. That kind of stuff is what I would be driven by, that, or I do get driven by opportunities for that. And it's not because I'm looking for success. It more has to do with something in my body saying, like, you can't do this, and then the other part of me saying, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to do it. That to me is what drives me.
And so, same thing. James and I were having this conversation about our boys yesterday because my oldest one is a lot like James, right? Never wants to get in trouble, not hyper confident. And he's talking about it when he's younger, right? Like not hyper confident, doesn't want to mess up, doesn't want to be embarrassed. And then Braden and I are very similar because like I didn't have to struggle when I was younger, right? Like I've made this more than abundant. Like I never had to worry about eating. I never had to worry if I wanted to do something, my parents were going to take me to do it. but I was still gritty, right? Like I was still gritty. And Braden's that way because if you told me I couldn't do something, I'd be like, listen here, motherfucker, and watch out. Let me show you just how good I can do it. And Braden's the same way. But it's not that I'm defensive all the time. It's just like I am supremely confident in what I can offer and what I can do and in myself as a person, right? Like I don't think there's really anything I can't do. Now there's stuff I don't want to do, but there's nothing I think I can't do. And as I get older, there's more stuff I don't want to do, and a lot of it involves getting hurt because I don't want to be hurt anymore. But like it's I always think that no matter what, there's going to be a positive outcome. Even for all the negative outcomes, there's still going to be a positive at the end of it as long as we keep moving. And I'm always looking for opportunity, no matter what it is. Like it does not matter. It doesn't have to be business. It could be the same thing as like when you're riding across a pasture, just finding a different path to get there. Like I'm always looking at the best. Look, hope for the best, plan for the worst. I just don't really plan for the worst. I just know what's going to happen if it's the worst and how I get myself out of it. Because again, I don't actually want to plan for the worst because then I think that I'm inviting the worst to come to me.
No, it's like the Top Hand Cowgirl Challenge for me. I've had a lot of conversations this weekend with women about it, and it's amazing to me. Well, I mean, and probably because it's a new area, but in Minnesota, the event fills fast, and it's literally an event for everyone from seasoned riders to novice riders. It's very welcoming, and it's an opportunity to learn something new with your horse, be around your horse. It's good. And I've talked to a lot of girls here, and there's a good handful who are like, oh no, there's no way we could do that. And when I started in Minnesota, I did get a lot of the same feedback too. So it's not surprising, but they're like, there's no way we could do that because we're not all around riders. And they look at this as a sanctioned show. And I'm finally like, no, this is not a sanctioned ranch horse versatility show. If that is what you're looking for, we are not your people. If you are looking for a good time and you are looking to learn some new aspect of riding with your horse, gain some confidence for yourself and make some new friends, we are your people. If you are looking for a place to go that has tons of rules, tons of regulations, and they get pissed off at you when you do the wrong thing and kick your ass out, we are not your people. If you want somebody who's friendly and is going to make this a good experience for you, we are your people. Like,
again, right? Are you looking? Whoa. Are you looking for an opportunity or an obstacle? Right? A lot of people are afraid again of either embarrassment or disappointment.
Yes.
It's embarrassment and disappointment that I really believe are the two most crippling factors for people.
They've told themselves they can't do it for so long, they won't even put themselves out there to try.
And
to see if they enjoy it.
Yeah, and if you do it right, and even if it's a good time and you don't like it, okay, well now you can cross it off your list of things that just aren't for you.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm also never afraid to look like an idiot. Like I'm okay with that. Like again,
women are though, including me.
And again, that's not like I don't know that that's always a positive. Like not caring what people think is not always the best. It's not always the best. I don't know how to operate in a different way. And again, I see opportunities in a lot of different places. I try and pass on opportunities to other people also because, I want everyone to be successful. I want everyone to do well. I want everyone to be happy. I don't want anyone to feel alone. And I think, I don't want to be selfish with my time. Like you talk about being selfish with your time. I don't want to be selfish with my time, but I'm also not going to expend energy on things that don't fill me up in any way. Which as you get older, it's much easier to differentiate those things, right? When you're younger, you will spend a lot of time in pursuit of things that don't give back to you financially, emotionally, spiritually, but you thought they would. And again, I still don't think that's a negative, right? You now learned, okay, those things aren't for me. For whatever reason, that's not for me.
I agree. All right, Remy, well, we better wrap it up here. Great talking to you this week. I think this is week 2 of us being consistent on Tuesday mornings, which is
amazing. Us. I know. Even though I scared my husband because he goes to cow sale every Wednesday, so he thought that he'd missed a whole day somewhere.
All right. Well, until next time, have a great weekend. Until next time, be bold,
Be brave.
be humble. We'll see you next week, Remy.
All right. Bye.
Bye, girls.